Hello, and welcome to the Bot Nirvana podcast, where we dive into all things software automation. I'm your host, Nandan Mullakra. While I'm not podcasting, I write articles on nandan.info. I hope you enjoy the show. Let's get right into it. Our guest today is Sidney Madison Prescott, MBA. Sidney is a digital transformation leader with vast experience in intelligent automation. She was most recently the global head of intelligent automation for Spotify. She is the co-author of the book Robotic Process Automation using UiPath StudioX. In this chat, we talk about her experience scaling intelligent automation programs with people, culture, and technology. Let's listen in. Hi, Sidney. Welcome to the Bot Nirvana podcast. It's awesome having you today. Can we start with a quick personal intro?
Absolutely. I am really excited to be here and to dive into this conversation. So my name is Sidney Madison Prescott. I am a digital transformation leader based here in New York City. I have been working in intelligent automation and asset and configuration management for a little over 9 years. And my focus really is driving efficiency through automation. So I have built and scaled centers of excellence in relation to automation at companies such as Spotify, Bank of New York Mellon, E-Trade, and Fiserv. And I'm also a published author. I published a book, co-authored a book a few years ago called Robotic Process Automation using UiPath StudioX, a citizen developer's guide to hyperautomation that was well received in the industry. And I am currently working on my second book proposal. And in my spare time, I like to become an advocate for women in technology, for diversity in technology, and then I also sit on a couple of nonprofit boards here in New York City.
Awesome. That was a great intro. And so many things to cover there, so many things to unpack. But let's start with your automation experience, the digital automation experience specifically. You have a vast experience in that field, as you just now said. So what in that field excites you most and what keeps you going?
Great question. I would say looking at challenges within the business environment for the first time and really assessing the pain points that business stakeholders are feeling, and then being able to come up with creative automated solutions to solve those business pain points. So it's always exciting for me to come into a new environment, to start to learn and to understand how the business actually works in a cross-functional manner, and then to devise ways to, I would say, solutionize the efficiencies that we can gain. And usually that's using a combination of tools. So everything from robotic process automation to custom machine learning models to chat bots. So it really runs the gamut in terms of what we incorporate into that solution. But I really enjoy the problem solving of digital technology and really looking at how do we take where we are today from a business standpoint and fundamentally transform it with automation.
Wow, excellent. So, across the organization that you've worked, what's some problems that you've solved that you would like to share with us, and probably some solutions to that too?
I would say the biggest one is breaking down the business silos that exist within an enterprise environment. So one example of that is looking at, let's say, the way that your advertising function performs its duties and how those invoices, client receipts, how do those funnel over to the finance department? This is typically a workflow that can have some challenges, whether it's from a data quality perspective, whether it's from an efficiency perspective. And our goal is always to see how can we increase the time to revenue. So the time between the client saying like, hey, I want to create an ad, I want to submit an ad on your platform, to actually invoicing that client and receiving the funds, which then generates revenue for the company. So we want to make that time to revenue as short as possible in order to further basically stimulate the growth of our enterprise. And this is a great area for automation, depending on what tools already exist within the ad space and the finance space, usually can get a lot of benefits from driving process efficiency through looking, one, at the processes that already exist, two, looking at the tools that the team is using, and three, looking at how the team is using the tool. So are employees properly utilizing the tools that they have access to.
Okay. And, I like that you mentioned revenue generation. So, it's pretty mature that you're focusing on revenue generation rather than, cost decreases or cost cutting or even hours saved. So that's awesome. So, for such a mature program of that nature, it's all about people, right? So who are the people you're working with? Who are the leaders you're working with to make this thing a success?
Yes, I think the building of the team and making sure the right roles and responsibilities are clearly outlined at the beginning of the initiative is so critical to the success of a digital transformation program. And from my side, I typically go into a company where a digital transformation program does not exist. And so my goal there is to outline the right roles that need to be filled. And typically that starts with understanding the leaders that will work as my direct reports. So typically I have engineering managers, architects, and sometimes data visualization analysts and data scientists that are working directly with me from a leadership standpoint to clearly outline the roadmap. So what do we hope to accomplish? When do we hope to accomplish it by? And how are we going to clearly dictate the returns that we've gained from the projects to our leadership? And then once I build that layer of leadership, then we go into the developers. So typically there are RPA developers. We typically have developers who can build custom machine learning models. And then of course, business analysts to be the liaisons between the business and the engineering side.
So that's awesome. I mean, if you're building a layer of team who can lay the foundation, right, to grow. So from a perspective of when you're starting out, which people do you recommend should you bring in first? Should it be the technology folks? Should it be the business folks? Should it be the engineering folks? What works best?
Typically it's a simultaneous build of understanding which business stakeholders you need to build relationships with while simultaneously starting to source, I'll say, your engineering team, because we want to ensure that we have buy-in from the business in terms of what we're planning to do. And usually by working with the business simultaneously, it helps us to paint a better picture of the existing landscape, which again dictates, okay, what type of engineers do we need? Do we need back-end engineers? Do we need engineers that understand websites and UI automation? So understanding kind of what are the business problems we're looking to tackle is the first step.
Okay. And so, yeah, understanding the business problems and, probably bringing the business side of the people first. The reason I ask is that, the last podcast I was recording with a gentleman who had run the automation at Ericsson, and they had grown it to like multiple people and groups and departments, resulting in millions of hours saved, as per him. So, he said the first thing he would do is bring in the business consultant kind of people first, so that they can go and get the work, in the sense, get the automations, get the automation ideas, and then he would bring in the developers. So that was an interesting perspective. So I think you're saying the same thing. First, get the business side of things right, and then you can move towards the technology side. Now, in terms of people, one of the things, which is important for any program, digital or digital automation program, is the culture of the organization, right? So how do you influence the culture so that you bring it towards a place where you have enough people supporting you on this digital journey?
Yes, this is I would say, one of the most challenging pieces of not only starting, but scaling a digital transformation program, because without I'll say, the right buy-in from the stakeholders, the key stakeholders within your organization, typically you're going to see the digital transformation effort wane a bit as time goes on. And so the first thing I would say is starting an internal marketing campaign is essential. And what does that entail? So really it's about informing people about your digital transformation effort. What are you doing? Why are you doing it? How are you planning to do it? And most importantly, why should your business stakeholders care, right? So typically as technologists, we're like, oh, it's this, is this, but you have to make sure that you're bringing your business stakeholders along with you on that journey. So it's very important to market your ideas and your wins and your successes when it comes to the business problems that you're tackling with automation. So I think that's the first piece is set up a very, I would say, cross-functional enterprise level marketing campaign where you talk about not only the technology piece, but you talk about the ways that you are building partnerships with your business stakeholders. Talk about some of the problems that your business stakeholders are facing in a way that really resonates with your key stakeholders. And that not only builds trust in your existing stakeholders, it starts to bring additional business people to you. In that, this is how you basically generate demand for your services as a digital transformation center of excellence.
Yeah, perfect. And so, you've got these guys on board, and then we are starting to involve probably a group of people, right? And then you're working with them, and then you are realizing efficiencies and as you automate and as we see. And then what next? Do you translate that efficiencies by reducing people, moving people? And then how does that impact the atmosphere in terms of doing more automations? What have you seen?
So within my work, I have only seen I would say the giving back of time to the employees. And then as a result, the employees typically can take on projects that were backlogged, projects that should be prioritized, but the team is just stretched too thin. So it's been very rewarding to actually see how teams, once we start freeing up their time with these automation projects, they're able to take on bigger projects, sometimes even company-wide projects that were typically stalled just because the teams did not have the bandwidth. I have not seen, at least within my experience, any decrease of staff as a result of automation. I think that you have to be very careful if that is your goal, because to your point, it is going to negatively impact the culture once word kind of gets out that your automation team is in essence automating work, but the result is going to be a reduction in force. And I think the easy way to pivot from that is to really look at a pretty new concept that I'm really exploring, which is how do we start building out a digital workforce? And that digital workforce basically would flex up and down on demand, both as business needs dictate, but also as the economic climate changes. So this would, in essence, enable, let's say, an enterprise to say, okay, you know what, we're starting to see that the economic climate is changing. It's going in a negative direction. We're probably going into a global recession in the next 18 months, let's say hypothetically. If you had that digital workforce already set up, you could flex that digital workforce down or up on demand, which would then, in an ideal scenario, reduce the need to actually lay off or have a reduction in force of your human employees. So in essence, it's a way to protect the integrity of your essential human workers, no matter what is going on in the company. So whether you're rolling out a new product and the product for whatever reason did not resonate in the market, or whether your company is very successful, you've got great products, great services happening, but the economic climate is changing and you need to reduce, how much you're generating in terms of products and services. A digital transformation, I would say team, but more importantly, a digital workforce could help you to weather those different storms that obviously happen. It's very hard as a business to dictate when there's going to be a global recession, right? But ideal scenario, you want to almost weatherproof your organization against the fluctuations in the global marketplace.
Okay, that's an interesting concept. So, what are you suggesting there in terms of digital workers? So, are you saying that the work is done by being done by the digital workers? They decrease, they flex based on the demand, whereas the people keep doing what they're doing? How do you propose that people not be laid off?
Correct. So in essence, the digital workforce would be the workforce that is flexing up or down based on demand. The humans are either supporting, you're going to have some support and maintenance, which would be a human function. I have been toying around with the idea of kind of self-healing bots, but that's a whole nother, probably do a whole nother podcast on that. In lieu of that, so you would have your kind of support and maintenance human workforce. Then you would have your human workforce that their time has been freed up, right, as a result of these automations. That human workforce, you would basically be able to keep that workforce at a pretty static level without the need to flex and, add on, let's say, thousands of additional headcount, because you can add on thousands of additional digital workers. And then when your demand decreases, you can roll those digital workers off so that they're either sunset or turned off for a certain time period until the economic conditions improve, and then you can turn them back on. So it really helps you to be able to say, I can't necessarily control what's happening in the market, but I can control the reaction of my firm to the changes.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I think the flexing of the digital workers, I think will reach a stage where a lot of the work that we are doing, especially the repetitive and manual work, is being done by the digital workforce. And the really required part of work that a human needs to do is with the humans. And so there is this possibility to flex the digital workforce up and down. In that way, that's the one doing a lot of the work. And the people are focused most on the business. And so they are business or creative things which runs the business, which unless the business is doing very badly, you can keep them by decreasing the digital workforce. So I think that makes perfect sense. And there's still probably the people will be impacted, but the impact to the people can be decreased quite a lot because we are flexing the work which is actually being done using a digital workforce. So that's a very interesting concept. So thanks for bringing that up. And especially because we are now in a recession period, entering a recession period, that's something which is top of mind for many people right now. So I think as people build organizations, it's important that people think of that mix of people versus the digital workforce, and what the digital workforce can do and what real people on the ground can do. So yeah, that's an awesome thing. So let's talk about people a bit more, because you've authored a book on citizen development and with StudioX. So some of the things, like you mentioned, is people taking on other projects. So have you seen, or do you propose that people take on, like, they get trained on these new digital tools and also do digital stuff? People who are on the business side can also step up and do that, and that's part of what they're doing is more of people plus digital work in future.
Absolutely. I would say that this is going to be this almost like human augmentation is what I call it. So workers that are upskilled in digital tools, digital transformation, who also have the business acumen, and their fundamental skill set is almost a combination of technology and business. This is going to be the ideal, I would say, worker profile of the future. If we look at the next 5 to 7 years, we look at all of the new tooling, whether it's Chat GPT, whether it's additional building out neural networks, we are leaning more and more towards and I think this is a quote that someone has said before, like every business is a technology business. This is becoming essential, which is, does your employee base have not only the business skill set, but also a component of the technical skill set as well. So I think as we move forward, we have to make sure that we're upskilling. I think it is a nice to have. I think that some organizations, the organizations that are on the cutting edge, are already doing this in the citizen development and the upskilling programs, but many organizations have not really bought into the concept of the kind of the digital upskilling that's necessary really to take their companies into the next decade or so. So I think it's going to become more and more critical as we move forward and as we continue to increase new technologies that we find we find time and budget to make sure that we're bringing all of our employees along on this was like hybrid technology business journey.
Yeah. And how about the technology people? What's your advice to the technology people? Many of us, I mean, and I'm also techie, it's been a silo, right? With the techies do the tech work, ID work, the business people do the business work, and the business people are reluctant to do the technical work. I see the business people, there are some business people like, marketing people, they are into marketing automation. They are beginning to do the digital. I'm more concerned about the uh, development people who are not so much into thinking about the business side. What do you think about that?
I think it's going to be the exact same thing, which is as a technologist, if you are siloing yourself and you only understand technology, you're going to be negatively impacted as the future rolls forward. Because again, that integration of technology and business, it's going to happen in such a way where I would argue there will be no more silos. So you will
Yes.
just have kind of almost this technology business driven environment where yes, some workers may be more skilled on the technical side, some will be more skilled on the business side, but they can work together seamlessly because they have the business acumen and the technical acumen. So I think we're going to see engineers who have typically been very siloed, right? Even down to the way that, and I come from an engineering background. My entire career has been in engineering. And I see sometimes the disconnect between the way that engineers talk or even communicate to the business, right? And it causes rifts, it causes misunderstandings because you're speaking in such a technical way that you
Jargon.
lose
Yeah.
people, right? And they're like, I have no idea what you just said, right? Because you're talking about the schematics of the back end and should we build middleware? And they're like, I don't even know what middleware is, right? So I
Yeah.
think we need to do a better job as technologists of understanding that we have to get to a point where we can communicate effectively to our business stakeholders. And that doesn't necessarily mean we can't have technical conversations with them, but it means we need to adjust the way that we have those conversations. And we also need to, again, help as technologists, help our business stakeholders to upskill. So in our day-to-day work, as we work together, there's upskilling that can take place even between teams in conference calls as you whiteboard out ideas, right? Working together instead of kind of going into a silo and saying I'll work on the technical solution and then I'll come back and just present it to you as the business. It's like, well, why do I have to do that? Why can't we have a session, right? A working session where I say, here's what I'm thinking, but let's flesh it out, right? Because you are the business me, I'm the technicals me. Let's bring our knowledge together and work on a solution that is not just going to be my interpretation of your business problem. It's going to be a true melding of here's the core business issue, here's the technical solution, and they match seamlessly together.
Yeah, and I like that melding. I think, that's the place, that's what everyone should be looking at, whether you're on the business side or the technology side, because like you said, every business is a technology business, or every technology is also related to business. So to all techies out there, and my thought is that there is not going to be silos, right? Like silos are going away. So when the silos are going away, you better be a business guy with lot of technical experience who is able to solve the problems, because probably they are the only people who will survive as the AI storm comes in. And I'm totally worried about the development side, because what AI is able to do on the technology side, on the cognitive side, is way off the charts than I thought. I mean, it can generate the Python code, it can generate UiPath code, it can generate any code. So, I'm thinking we are in for a place where the development side is going to become a lot more efficient. And so your differentiation would be knowing about the business that you are in, right? And picking up that and working with the businesses in terms of making them technologically more adept. And so is the case with business, but I think business people are more when it comes to business, and you have a more efficient AI giving you code where you can actually, the business person can actually chat with chat GPT and then get whatever is needed. Right now it is generating code, but tomorrow it will generate things which is really required. It's already generating websites and things like that, so tomorrow it will probably even generate automations. Actually, Power Automate already has something where you can prompt and it will give you the automation. So yeah, I mean, I think that melding and people working together and working as one, it's not there's a technology silo, it's a business silo, that's really important. And that's probably the culture that we want to be developing in each of the organizations. So talking of technology, I just wanted to talk to you about the technologies that you are currently seeing in the market, and we are all techies, so it's very exciting to talk about technology. So what excites you most about the technologies that's right now there, and what you see on the horizon?
I think the biggest thing I've seen, and I would say I've seen this in the past 2 to 3 years, is a move from a digital transformation perspective, a move away from UI automation and a move towards using more APIs and backend automation. And this is because, of course, UIs are so dynamic. If you're working against SaaS systems, so systems in the cloud, you can't control when they're pushing out, right, new versions where the elements of the UI could potentially change. And so it's become very essential as more and more organizations move to SaaS solutions, where most, if not all, of the business applications that the team are utilizing are in the cloud, and they're basically managed by someone else, right? A third party vendor. It's important for us to say that we can still automate against those SaaS systems. And so this has brought up a need to do less of the UI kind of, okay, I'm just going to identify the elements, right, and be able to automate from there, and more of the, okay, I'm actually looking at the back end to look at the actual code, and I'm automating from there. I think that's the biggest thing I've seen. I've, of course, also seen the move towards more customization. So more customized machine learning models. We're obviously seeing the rise of more, I would say, more daily use of artificial intelligence, which is the chat GPT. We're starting to see a bigger increase of a willingness to use these kind of intelligent chatbots, I'll say, because we've had chatbots for quite some time, but they have been very rudimentary compared to where we're going next, right? I would say where we're going in the next 5 years or so in relation to chatbots, to artificial assistants, is going to be light years ahead of what we typically think of when we think of like a customer service chatbot that's built into a client-facing UI, right? So we're going to see a lot more adoption, I think, of these very powerful artificial intelligence generated chatbots. And time is going to tell, to your point, whether or not even the development side is going to be impacted by a user's ability to basically, as you said, dictate, like, here's my business problem, build me a robot, right? Build me a software solution that can handle this. And it completely takes out the developer, right? So like, then you don't need developers. So then what happens to all the developers, right? You will still need somebody to manage, again, support and maintenance of the chatbot, right? So that's never going to go away. People would argue you can do some self-healing stuff there. Yes, but I think fundamentally you're always still going to need some humans there in the back end. Going towards the future, if business people can dictate what they want built to an artificial system, where does that leave the developers? And I think that question remains to be seen in terms of, is that going to shift the marketplace? Do you become more, does a developer become more of a support and maintenance function at that point? I'm not really sure. Time will tell.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, time will tell. We don't know. I mean, we can make all sorts of predictions. So the other day, Sam Altman tweeted out that right now it's to develop an iPhone app, you need a person whom you're paying $300,000, whereas a plumber is probably $30,000. But he thinks that things will change soon with AI because the whole cognitive load is going to be so much reduced. Like you say, if we can dictate things to an AI or just chat with an AI and tell it what you want to do, and it has already learned what it can be done and it can carry it out, then it takes out the whole developer out of the equation. And we are just talking not just bots. The whole bot concept that we have with RPA is completely gone, and we already seeing technologies like that in the market. Like I seen adept.ai, ADEPT, adept.ai. They're doing an awesome work already. I mean, it is actually an attended automation. They don't use any bot, no RPA, no chatbot, nothing. I mean, I shouldn't say no chatbot, but basically what they're doing is prompt-based automation. So it is learning, like when you are, let's say, updating Salesforce, it's learning and putting data in there, taking data from a spreadsheet and putting there. And it's not somebody is programming it. No, it has learned. The AI has learned it to do it. And so it completely takes out the developer out of the equation if an AI can reach to that level. Now, the problem, and I think the thing with AI is it's an asymptotic problem in the sense that it gets really good, but it's never 100%. So even today, if you ask ChatGPT, you just cannot believe it to give you everything right. You got to be there to filter it out. So I think there would be developers who would be needed so that you have got it right. But at the end of the day, 80% of the work probably is done by an AI. And then so the business people is less dependent on you as a developer. Even more reason that you better become a business person with technology, and a business person also learns the technology part. So I think we are in for exciting times. I mean, one more thing we've been discussing in the club has been the explosion of technologies and the ecosystem that has developed around automation, right? So yes, RPA is on its way down. Yesterday, Forrester came up with its wave, and it said that this probably is the last pure play RPA wave, because RPA is probably on the way out, and then explosion of ecosystem of it, process mining, conversational AI, with various AI components like document processing. So all those are things are coming together, and that explosion or that technology ecosystem is increasing. So the technology complexity is really going to be high. Now, I don't think AI will start learning all those things soon. So I think there is a space for people who know all these technologies to bring it together for people. So yeah, I mean, it's exciting times. I mean, we don't know where it goes. As you said, time will tell, but it's good to see or know that it's going beyond all these things, and let's be more business, more technology, more in touch, more continuous learning, and more in touch with people like you who are driving this conversation. And I really loved the fact about your how to flex the digital workforce so that we can reduce our recession packs, right, for the organization. It's not good for people, it's not good for the organization. Hopefully we'll have more efficient but less impacted organizations during a recession. So thank you so much, Sidney, for being with us today. It's an awesome chat. If people want to find you, connect with you, what's the best way to do it?
I would say LinkedIn for sure. I am very active on LinkedIn. You can also Google me. You can find all my work there. And I typically create a lot of thought leadership content on LinkedIn as well, and participate in a lot of conversations. So if you just kind of look up Sidney Madison Prescott, you'll find all the ways to connect to me. I'm very active on all of the kind of social media and digital thought leadership platforms. So, and I look forward to engaging with everyone. And this has definitely been a great discussion.
Sidney Madison Prescott. The name is just enough, but I'll still put a link to your LinkedIn profile so that people can find you. Thank you so much again, Sidney. Awesome having you today. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining the Bot Nirvana podcast. Appreciate if you can leave a review on iTunes or Stitcher. Catch the show notes on botnirvana.org. While you're there, feel free to explore more automation ideas, tutorials, tools, and more. See you next time.